Time to go through today's headlines with Camilla, Tominey and Alan Johnson. Morning, morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
How are you?
OK, let's start off, first of all, with the lady we haven't spoken about for quite a while, Margaret Thatcher. A new book has claimed that the former Prime Minister, Margaret Thatcher, had 2 affairs whilst married to her husband, Dennis. The first one was allegedly during her early days as Prime Minister, and the second with a fellow politician. She only slept 4 hours a night. Maybe that was the reason.
I'm surprised she had time between destroying British industry and selling off our council houses.
It's gone straight to politics. Can I just say in response to these rumours, no.
I
don't know if these are true. We don't think they are. We consulted you. I just messaged Charles Moore, who's my colleague at The Telegraph, who wrote the ultimate biography, the official biography of Margaret Thatcher. This doesn't feature in there. He says
the chances
unlikely.
of this are vanishingly small.
Yes.
Really?
So the journalist who wrote has written this book. Journalist Tina Godoin, is that how Godwin?
And she's at the Cheltenham Literary Festival, and it's fair enough. This is what she claims, and she says she's sourced it well. She's put it in her book. But this is not something we've heard before. And I think for it to come out now, it's the 100th anniversary this week of Thatcher's birth. For it to come out now, I would have imagined that it would have come out at some point much earlier than this.
I would have thought. I mean, I've just done a biography of Harold Wilson, and Harold and Marcia was a famous sort of double act. But there was also an allegation that he had an affair late in life. And with a woman called Janet Hewlett-Davis. I think complete and utter rubbish.
Is it?
I think complete and utter rubbish. Now, I'm not saying this is complete and utter rubbish, but it seems a bit strange.
It does, doesn't
as
it?
Camilla
There's also
says.
a suggestion that Dennis Thatcher was close to Mandy
Rice-Davies,
who was involved in the Profumo affair,
yes,
if you remember.
Yes.
Again, I mean, we haven't read the book, so we, of course, she's perfectly entitled to write this and report it, but let's just say recollections may vary.
Do we know where the sources were from?
Jonathan Aitken was one of them,
right,
who was quite close to Mrs. T.
Yeah.
But actually, she'd be unusual in the history of British Prime Ministers not to have been having an affair. If you go to Asquith, Lloyd George, Anthony Eden, leave aside some recent Prime Ministers who share my surname, Harold Wilson and Marcia, you know, it seems to have been a general trend.
It is a thing.
In number 10.
Politicians in not always behaving impeccably.
I don't, you know what, some politicians,
honestly.
Camilla, some politicians.
It never happened in your day, Alan, of course.
No.
It's interesting, isn't it? So obviously it's her 100th, so lots of people are going to be interested in talking about her political career, celebrating it or questioning it. And then the idea of her trying to find something else that's going to sell the book, and it's doing exactly that. It's created a lot of intrigue as to whether this feasibly could have happened.
Yes. Also, to be honest, like her or loathe her, she's a very, very interesting political figure. First female Prime Minister, longest-serving Conservative Prime Minister. There are lots of biographies out. I recommend people read them. You know, for a whole... We're going to speak in a moment about Generation Z, and a lot of them don't really know or understand her remarkable legacy. Again, Alan will disagree with it. I think that she did a lot right.
She was a notable Prime Minister,
but she was very, very notable, and it's almost a shame, actually, that, you know, history has perhaps washed over some of her finest achievements, because she was groundbreaking for obvious reasons.
Does this damage her legacy, Alan, this sort of rumour these days, or is it beyond that?
I don't think so. I think it kind of adds to the gaiety of the nation, if you like, as long as you see it in the context of her greatest biographer, Charles Moore, that Camilla mentioned. I mean, he went to exhaustive lengths.
Yes.
And if he says that he thinks this is unlikely, I'm with Charles.
Also, the other thing, just thinking about it, the first volume of that book largely focuses on letters between Margaret and her sister. If it doesn't appear in any of those letters, which seems odd, because he's saying very early, the author in this new book is saying very early on in her career that she had this affair. That, you know, the letters between her and her sister are very, very intimate.
You think they would have shared that
they
sort
were
of...
close.
Yeah,
I think so.
And she talks about her courtship with Dennis and everything, and somebody else she's dating. I think let's add a huge pinch of salt here.
Some of it's an allegation of flirtatious behaviour with a man called Tim Bell, who I knew very well, actually, because he worked for me when I was head of the union. And Tim Bell
as well, then?
apparently was quite flirtatious with her. And, you know, she was a very attractive woman, I guess. Flirtatious behaviour is not having an affair. And so I think, it's stretching a long bow.
Interesting. OK, let's move on to Gen Z or Z, as you just mentioned. Young people today, Camilla, are twice as likely to have poor mental health, excuse me, as previous generations on this new poll.
Yes, so 51% of 16 to 24-year-olds who are now estimated to have a mental health problem. 51%. That compares to just 20% of millennials who were aged 16 to 24 in 2009. What's the major factor in this? The major factor in this is the advent of the mobile phone, and particularly the smartphone for the younger generation. So if you look back and you read Dr. Jonathan Haidt's book, The Anxious Generation, which I do recommend parents read. I mean, it does make parents an anxious generation about their own children, but there you have it. Lots of mental health problems were attributed to COVID and lockdown, but actually you look at the graphs of how mental health has deteriorated in that generation over the course of the years, and the rot sets in at 2012, 2013, when smartphones become available. And let's be perfectly honest, you can go doom scrolling and get very depressed as an adult, Alan, let alone if you're an impressionable young mind. And I think that's where the link is here, actually.
I think we both got Gen Z.
We've got Gen Zs, haven't we?
Gen Zs. Oh, yeah, has it got to be Z?
I think we should say Z.
It's got to be the Americanisation.
Amazing that it's doubled in a generation. I mean, there's the correlation, as Camilla was saying, between the advent of the smartphone, but also is there a correlation between sort of the honesty that people have now, the accessibility of using these words, being able to label how you're feeling in a way that feels like it's a mental health issue?
And on the other hand, we're more aware of these things
so we talk about it more.
Mental health was a closed book. I mean, right up until the 60s, you got stuck away in some home... institution, and that was it. Whereas now we understand it much more. I think the pressures on this generation are incredible, actually, to cope with the pressures upon them. I'm not sure I would have been able to. Not just social media, but the pressure to pass exams, the pressure from your, contemporaries to dress a certain way. It's a very, there's no serenity in there. Very little serenity in their lives. They have to fight for a bit of serenity.
Yes, that's right. This kind of permanent having to keep up with everybody because everything is so visible and visual.
Yeah.
Also, not just that, but like, how am I going to earn enough money to afford a home? It's a key concern in the back of any Gen Z's mind. So I think we can understand this. Also, I think young people get a bad press and, they're not as tough as they used to be. There are different circumstances facing Gen Zs. They have to be incredibly resilient. But equally, we meet a great many brilliant young people, young people coming into the newspaper the whole time, doing work experience or whatever. They want to get ahead in life. I do think we sometimes give them a bit of a bad press.
Well, what about a positive thought a day? Does that maybe help raise you mentally?
I just think of Camilla, basically, and the day opens up ahead of me.
I am touched by that, especially as we disagree on Thatcher. I think sometimes you have to just say to yourself, tomorrow's another day.
Because the interesting thing is...
feel better sometimes. You can just have a terrible, terrible day, and the next morning you feel better.
So the Gen Zers are struggling with their mental health, but however, they are using these positive affirmations each morning to wake up and set themselves up in a more positive frame of mind.
Sure, and also maybe just, self-regulate on the phone and apply some screen time. I genuinely think the phone can drag us into an abyss. And the other thing is, it's so isolating, particularly when it comes to young men. We've had a lot of reports. The Centre for Social Justice did a really interesting report recently on the so-called lost boys. And one of the... and it was about working-class boys falling behind in school and in work and in earnings. But the point was really is that boys are increasingly isolated. This is the other thing about the phone. You're going to get depressed if you're not seeing your mates enough because you're in your room on a phone alone. It used to be a punishment to be sent to your room. When we were growing up, go to your room and be by yourself. Now it seems to be what these young people are craving. That's not healthy. Let's all sit around a telly in an evening and watch things together and be convivial.
Well, some of the wise words have come from icons like Nelson Mandela. His quote is, "It always seems impossible until it's done." Taylor Swift is, of course, in the mix. Of course, hard things will happen to us. We will grow more resilient because of it. And Steve Jobs, the only way to do great work is to love what you do.
Quite right, too.
I think that helps. Good. As long as people don't get the impression that everyone's a Steve Jobs or everyone is a Nelson Mandela, and you hear this stuff of, all you have to do is to be determined, you can achieve the whole world. Actually, it's tough. It's tough. It's not easy. You've got to work at it.
Do you know what is tough? Is putting on trainers as a woman and trying to run as fast as a man. Do you know why that is, Camilla?
Because they're designed for men.
They're sexist. Trainers are sexist.
Everything's sexist.
This is unbelievable. That I can't believe that women have had to struggle with this for generations.
I have struggled to cope, actually. To be fair, I just bought some new nice...
sexist trainers.
No, I just bought some nice trainers and I was wearing them in conference season last week. And I did notice that, like, the arches of my feet were feeling sore. And I thought, well, maybe it is because they're male. But the solution to this is for a female entrepreneur to address this gap in the market and come up with some women's trainers. Having said that, you can go into trainer shops and they do put you on the treadmill, don't they? And they record you and they can see how your feet land, and then you can get a very comfortable pair of trainers.
So
Alan, I don't know if you've ever done that.
This research, Alan, is that most have found that most running trainers are still designed and tested primarily on men, meaning that many women struggle with discomfort when running. The theory is the majority of these big manufacturers shrink it and pink it. Which is how I can... That's my phrase in the morning.
Laugh by that.
That's how I give myself a little positive boost in the morning. Shrink it and pink it.
Jesus. Wow.
And actually, but you're absolutely right. There was talking, I think it was back in the end of the summer, there was a female entrepreneur that was creating the first time ever women's football boots, because football boots similarly have been designed for men.
And rugby now.
And rugby, too right. And actually they're now designing them for women. And you wonder whether the difference this could make to some of our female athletes.
I was surprised by this, because women wear trainers now in the most unlikely circumstances, you know, with the most unlikely accomplishments. You know, you used to, if a woman was in a dress, you'd expect to see a pair of high-heeled shoes.
Now,
it's trainers.
Yeah.
Even brides actually getting married.
Walk down the aisle in their trainers.
Be comfortable. That's what we like. Comfort first.
Yeah.
Yeah, so let's move on to this last question for the time being.
Shall we do it?
Yeah,
OK. Everybody's talking about it this morning, aren't
Lorraine
they?
was talking about it with Lucy just a moment ago.
This is not knickers.
We're talking knickers, Alan.
Okay.
Prepare yourself.
Kim Kardashian's underwear brand Skims has entered a whole new market by releasing faux pubic hair thongs, which are aptly named the ultimate bush.
Well, these are actually merkins, aren't they? They are pubic wigs of a...
Yes.
But what I don't understand... I mean, obviously this has been done...
Can I just ask, sorry, Camilla, just in case anyone doesn't know, because, Alan, I think it's probably more your generation. Can you explain what a merkin was and what it was for?
A merkin?
Yeah.
I haven't got a...
So you don't know?
A merkin was a pubic wig to disguise anyone that might have had some kind of venereal or other sexually transmitted disease.
Goodness gracious,
I
what an
didn't
authority you are!
I just had that just from the old history books, just in case you wanted to know.
I did want to know.
Yeah, and what I find weird about this is obviously the trend... Well, what? I have some strange knowledge about it.
The detail. It's always the detail.
Journalists, we are jacks of all trades and masters of none, I'm afraid. So we do have strange pockets of knowledge. But the point is that I find surprising is I thought the trend now, particularly among the Kardashian sort of set, was obviously to have no pubic hair. And now they're bringing pubic hair back. One could make the argument that just keep your pubic hair rather than buying knickers with pubic hair.
You pay to get it taken away and then you pay to put it back on again.
I've had some hairy moments on TV, but this is the...
12 designs, different hair colours and textures. It's funny, aren't these guys? And that's what it's £24. It would cost you $32.
I mean, honestly, why would you bother?
Yeah. I mean, it's an interesting proposition.
It looks a bit itchy to me. I mean, you wouldn't want to be wearing them with a pair of leggings, would you, Kat?
No, or in 75-degree heat.
No,
but
or even with a mini
But you could put the bits at the end over your ears if you're bald and make that a kind of Mohican hairstyle.
It could be rather than a pubic wig, it could be an actual wig.
An actual, little syrup on the top, little toupee.
Love that, little comb over.
Always
Ben and I wouldn't know anything about that.
The imagination runs wild, doesn't
Thank you both for the time being. Camilla and Alan will be back a little bit later. Thanks for visiting our This Morning YouTube channel. We upload tons of new content every single day. So hit the subscribe button, like all the videos, and don't miss out. We'll see you in the morning.